Have you ever stopped to think about how a huge global company actually works? With thousands of employees, supply chains that stretch across continents, and complex finances. How do they keep it all from falling into chaos? Well, the secret isn't magic. It's a powerful digital nervous system that acts as the company's brain. And in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers and see how this digital brain really ticks.
I mean, really think about that for a second. How does the finance team in New York get an instant update on a sale that just happened in Tokyo? How does a factory in Germany know exactly when to expect a shipment of parts from Brazil so there are no expensive delays? Figuring this stuff out, well, that's the core challenge for any big modern business. Before these massive integrated systems came along, companies were basically just a collection of separate islands. You had different departments, each with its own set of books, its own records, its own version of the truth. It was pretty much organized chaos. In a company full of silos, finance has no idea what sales is up to, and manufacturing isn't talking to logistics. It's just a recipe for disaster. The whole goal is to move away from that mess and towards a single unified system where every single part of the business is looking at the same information in real time. And these separate systems created some huge problems. You had the same data being typed in over and over again in different departments, which you can imagine leads to tons of duplication and errors. Reports were all over the place because everyone was pulling from their own little data pond, and trying to coordinate anything, it was a total nightmare, causing massive delays and inefficiencies. So, the solution that finally emerged was a truly revolutionary idea. What if we build one single, central software platform to act as the company's digital brain and nervous system? And that right there is the world of enterprise resource planning, or ERP. At its core, an ERP system is an integrated software platform that brings together all the core parts of a business: finance, HR, manufacturing, sales, you name it. And it does this through one shared database. Now that's the magic ingredient right there. A shared database, one single source of truth for the entire organization. But these incredibly powerful systems didn't just pop up overnight. Nope, they've got a pretty cool history. It all started back in the day with manufacturing, with something called Material Requirements Planning, or MRP. It was basically just to figure out what parts they needed and when. Then that grew into MRP2, which added capacity planning to the mix. And from there, it just exploded into the full-blown ERP systems we have today, touching every single corner of the business. All right, so if an ERP is the company's brain, how does it actually, think? Well, it helps people make decisions at every single level, using a whole hierarchy of powerful analytical tools. Just think of it like a pyramid of insight. Down at the bottom, you've got Management Information Systems, or MIS. These give supervisors the routine, day-to-day reports on how things are going. Move up a level and you get Decision Support Systems, or DSS. These are for managers who need to play around with complex what-if scenarios, asking questions like, what happens to our profits if the cost of our raw materials jumps by 15%? And then, right at the very top, you have Executive Information Systems, EIS, which give top leadership that high-level dashboard view of the entire company's health. And you can really see the incredible reach of this digital brain here. It's not just sitting there thinking, it's out there doing stuff. It's managing materials, controlling production schedules, optimizing the entire supply chain, and even handling customer relationships. It connects every physical and digital move the company makes. But here's the thing. For a brain to work properly, it needs a logical structure, right? Thoughts can't just be a jumbled mess of random signals. And the exact same thing is true for enterprise software. It needs a clean, organized architecture to be effective. A really common way they organize this is with an architecture called MVC. The whole idea is pretty simple. You separate the data, that's the model, from what you actually see on the screen, that's the view, and the logic that connects them both, which is the controller. By keeping those three things separate, the whole system becomes way easier to build, update, and fix without, breaking everything else. Okay, so if you've got this all-powerful central brain running your entire company, you absolutely have to protect it. Enterprise security is kind of like the system's immune response, and it's got to be on guard against threats 24/7. The very thing that makes an ERP system so amazing, the fact that everything is connected, is also its biggest weakness. When every part of your business is linked together, a single security breach can be completely devastating. So security isn't just a feature. It's an absolute necessity. A huge piece of that security puzzle is controlling who gets to see what and who gets to do what. There are three main ways to handle this. You've got discretionary access control, or DAC, where the person who owns the data gets to decide who sees it. Then there's mandatory access control, or MAC, which is way stricter. It has system-wide rules that nobody can change. Think military-grade security. But honestly, most businesses use role-based access control, or RBAC. With RBAC, your permissions are based on your job title. Simple, and much, much easier to manage. And that immune system has a whole arsenal of tools. Firewalls act as the bouncer at the door, filtering who and what gets in. Tools like IPXec create secure, encrypted tunnels for data to travel through safely. And then you have single sign-on, or SSO, which makes life easier for everyone by letting them log in once to access a bunch of different applications, all while keeping security tight and centralized. For decades, these digital brains lived inside a company's own data centers on these massive, expensive servers. But the latest and maybe biggest evolution has been to move the entire system into the cloud. And this shift from bulky, expensive hardware sitting in a back room to flexible online services, it's not just a technical upgrade. It is completely changing the game for how businesses of all sizes can operate and compete. This is all happening through a model called software as a service, or SaaS. Instead of buying and owning the software, companies basically just rent it. The application is delivered right over the internet, which means they don't have to worry about managing any physical hardware at all. And the difference in cost is just stark. Traditional on-premise systems required a gigantic upfront investment in hardware and licenses. I mean, look at that towering bar. It was a huge barrier for smaller companies. But cloud ERP? It completely lowers that barrier to entry. It's more flexible, you can scale it up or down whenever you need to, and all the updates are handled for you. And what this all really means is that the cloud has democratized these incredibly powerful business tools. The kind of stuff that was once only available to the biggest corporations in the world is now accessible to small and medium-sized businesses, letting them compete on a global stage like never before. Which, of course, brings us to a final, pretty fascinating question. We've built these digital brains to run our businesses. We're now feeding them incredible amounts of data and teaching them how to spot patterns using AI. So as they keep getting smarter and more predictive and maybe even more autonomous, where does that leave us? What happens next?